So, sorry it's been so long. Last Friday night / Saturday morning, I woke up really sick. It was really sick. It was the flu or some shit. I don't really know for sure, but I was out for a few days, couldn't really talk. So anyway, we're back. I'm still working on the Tim Mahoney video. I promise it's coming. It's just wound up being a bigger project than I thought it was going to be because it's so hard to choose some of those solos over other solos. So it's actually going to be a 2-part video of 20 solos, 10 solos in each video. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Today I'm going to talk about number 11 on my list. So in case you haven't caught the last video, the very quick breakdown is I'm reviewing 311's albums in the order that I would rank them based on quality. This is my opinion and my opinion alone, and if you disagree with me, fine. I always welcome people to say whatever they want in the comments. So let's get started. Number 11 to me is going to be Don't Tread on Me. Now, just like Universal Pulse, which was number 12, there are things I like about this record. For example, if you listen to Chad's snare drum, this is the last time you still get that classic pop every time he hits it. The guitars and bass sound pretty good. This album was produced by Ron Saint. The high points on this album, in my opinion, are really high. For example, the 10th track, It's Getting Okay Now, is fucking awesome. Especially that little breakdown towards the end. And although Nick and S.A. have had pretty good harmony since the beginning, I think on this album there are a couple of times that they really go together very well on songs like Thank Your Lucky Stars, Frolic Room, Whiskey and Wine. And there are probably other examples too, but I'm going off of memory because I have pretty much all of these lyrics and everything memorized. Wouldn't ever need to listen to them again. So after the highlights, let's talk about some, not necessarily the bad stuff yet, but just the bland. I feel like this is the first 311 album that doesn't contain anything that reminds you of who they were before it. Some would argue Evolver is like that, but I disagree. I still think that songs like Other Side of Things, Still Dreaming, Creatures for a While, there are still songs on Evolver that evoke that classic 311 feeling. On Don't Tread on Me, I just don't see it. Now, one thing to note about this record is that a lot of the demos leaked. In fact, I used to have them on this channel 10 years ago.
As the people who stole our demos found out, some of our demos got out and it kept us on our toes, screw you.
A lot of the original songs leaked as demos, and I think that's why a lot of them got redone or just not used at all. It's also important to remember that this was the album that contains Nick writing from a pained place after his breakup with Nicole Kea of the Pussycat Dolls. For those of you who don't know, they were a thing in the early 2000s, and that's actually who he wrote Amber about. And I believe it was between Evolver and Don't Tread on Me. I could be wrong, but Evolver doesn't have a lot of pain in the lyrics, so I'm assuming that it happened between then and here. In my opinion, there are just some really cringy things on here. Like on the song Whiskey and Wine, even though earlier I praised the vocal harmony, I think Nick is drunk singing that song if you listen. When he says you put the liquor in the cup and swirl it around or whatever it is that he says, listen to his voice. He sounds hammered.
You pour the liquor in the cup and you just swirl it around, cause you don't remember if you're up or you're down. A temporary fix or moment's elixir, yeah.
The singles weren't the strongest, but they weren't the worst. Don't Tread on Me is a pretty cool song. Speak Easy is a pretty cool song. I didn't believe that was written by Chad at first when I read the credits because Speak Easy is followed by Solar Flare, and those kind of sound backwards. It sounds like Nick would have written the music for Speak Easy and Chad would have written Solar Flare. The point of me saying that is this is the album where, for better or worse, the members did start to kind of think outside of their own box that had brought them up to this point. And it has mixed results. Some of the strong points being, like I said earlier, It's Getting Okay Now. I think that's one of 311's best songs overall. And there's a lot of people that shit on Solar Flare, but I think it's kind of cool. The intro's really cool. You got the bass line and then Chad doing that little drum roll, and it has a little echo behind it. That's f***ing awesome. Regardless what you think about the rest of the song, you gotta admit the build up into it is awesome. Personally, I like Solar Flare. I don't see why it gets so much hate. But for every It's Getting Okay Now, there is a waiting. Still to this day, I think is one of their worst songs. I don't even know if they've ever played it live. And I'm not really going to spend any time trying to find out either. This also features a really heavy topic. Actually, track 8, Getting Through to Her, according to Essay, who wrote the song, is actually about sexual abuse of children. So parts of this album really do have a good message. But again, for every Getting Through to Her, there is a whiskey and wine. It's just not doing it for me. It never did. The official US version of the album ends with a song called There's Always an Excuse. And I see what they were trying to do, because like with Evolver, they wanted to end the album with a song that had a bunch of individual parts that were very different inside the one song. I don't think it works that well here. At first, it's really cool. It's like a real washy, chilled out song. Nick and Essay singing about how there's always an excuse. And then kicks into some hard rock shit, which is awesome. But then it just drops off into this like almost dancey piano. I don't know what to even call that. So even though this album has a couple highs, I really put it as next to last on the totem pole of their albums as far as quality. If I had to give this an overall score, which I think I forgot to do with Universal Pulse actually, I'd give it a D. Unlike Universal Pulse, there's something to go back to, but there's also 11 other albums to choose from. So I don't really know why you would pick this one. Anyway, thanks for watching.